It's time for the Albion Mag Radio Show.
Good morning, everybody. Hello and welcome to the Albion Mag Radio Show. It's not Dean this week, as you can probably tell. It's the usual co-host. I normally get the big build-up from Dean, but here I am, Leon Cox, and I'm joined today by a friend, social media assistant, Tom Stewart. Morning, Tom.
Prefer the term guru. But,
guru, sorry.
Good morning.
Sorry, Tom.
How you doing?
Yeah, maestro. And also returning to the studio for the first time this season, it's my old friend from the terraces of the North Stand and elsewhere, it's Paul Druitt.
Good morning, Leon. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, you're welcome anytime. Obviously, we'll get into everything. Thanks first to Nick for the previous couple of hours and for helping set me up with the techonology and all that sort of thing. You are, as we know, listening to the Albion Mag Radio Show on 1BTN, available online, DAB Digital and 101.4 FM. Get involved with the show right now. Tom is awaiting your posts and tweets. You can follow us on Twitter, twitter.com, obviously, the TAM Radio Show. You can use a hashtag TAM Radio Show if you like. We also have a thread on North Stand Chat. Search that out. It's probably best rather than me giving you the entire URL. You can even text 1BTN followed by your message to 81400. You may need to check with your service provider to see if there's any charge for that. Surely everyone has unlimited text these days anyway, but not unlimited data because they took that away. We're on air until midday and we're live, so do get in touch now. A little announcement. This is quite exciting. Legacy episodes, as I've called them in modern business speak. They are now available on YouTube. We're still working on a podcast situation, but you can listen to last week's show and a bunch of shows from before that. Head over to it's I think they're on Dean Kilford's channel, but if you just search on YouTube for the Albion Mag Radio Show, you can find the most recent show and others. Obviously, those of you listening live now, I'm not necessarily the target audience for those. Maybe you want to listen to a second time. But actually, it's something that a lot of people have requested because they're not available, not around to listen live at 11 a.m. on a Saturday. Also, it must be said, a big thank you to our friends at our favourite Brighton record label, Jalapeno Records. And we'll be hearing a piece from their studio, their archives later on. Now, first things first, we've put up a poll again this week. It's been it's had quite a large response. And Tom, what are we asking? What's it all about?
Cool. So last week we kind of we were discussing really well Glenn Murray and I guess his legacy, and in comparison to another modern day kind of legendary striker, Bobby Zamora, which one would be more fondly remembered? Yeah. In years to come. I'll be honest, I've seen closer North Korean presidential elections.
Bit of politics.
It's currently overwhelmingly in favour of Bobby Zamora, but a lot of you have been voting and leaving little comments for us as well. There's currently 66% in favour of...
That's 2/3 by my reckoning.
Yeah.
2 to 1. So it's interesting, and if you feel that the current hero, Glenn Murray, is being shortchanged by that, listeners, do head over to Twitter and rock the vote, if you will.
Got 45 minutes left, so...
And I think, yes, well, we'll talk about the reasons why that might be so heavily in Bobby's favour when we come to the end of the poll in about half an hour. As I say, Twitter at TAM Radio Show. Get your votes in now. Now I must turn my attention to Paul, returning guest. When did we last speak to you? Towards the end of last season?
I think it was the end of last season, or one game to go maybe. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think it was sometime in May. So I think we were probably safe and sound and guaranteed of another year in the big time.
So our mojo
was pretty good, I think.
Yeah. And how are you feeling now? A few games into...
Well, it's funny, isn't it? Because the season kind of stops and starts, doesn't it? And I kind of remember this from last year, that it kind of... What do we play? Kind of about 9 or 10 games up to the end of October, and then it all goes a bit kind of crazy. Yeah. So having the international break is a bit stop-start, but my mojo is very much higher than it was at about 5 o'clock on the first day of the season when I walked out of Vicarage Road, feeling pretty concerned. Yeah. It was a pretty shocking display at Watford, but obviously since then things have slightly improved, and obviously the United game was a huge amount of fun. and it was great to get some points there. And the Liverpool game as well, you know, we showed, I think, that we have a plan B for this season, which I think a lot of people have been concerned about, myself kind of included.
Yeah.
So there's some something to be, you know, kind of happy about there. And then obviously Fulham, well, great comeback, you know, lots of fun, but to kind of let in those 2 goals was, you know, a little bit disappointing. So yeah, I think my mojo's pretty good on the positive side of things, as it tends to be.
Yeah, it was. Although this time last season, because we were all concerned about the sort of the transfer window, I think it was the striker situation, wasn't it, that we were quite worried about 12 months ago. Turns out we needn't have worried. We still needn't have worried. We've added multiple strikers since then, and they can't get in the team.
Yes, and I think, you know, the poll that's going on at the moment is an interesting one because, you know, I'm a huge Murray fan, and spent pretty much every half time of every game that I went to after his departure to them up the road, saying to you know, my friends over a beer, well, we'd be winning here if we had Glenn Murray in the team. So you know, always been a huge fan, and you know, he's just so good at what he does, isn't he? You know, I think some of the professional pundits have been talking a lot about him in the last couple of weeks because of his good start to the season, and you know, they talk about him in terms of being an old-fashioned striker and all of that kind of thing. Well, I think that kind of undervalues him a little bit. He's a very clever striker. He gets in as good a positions as, you know, any of the greats, the Michael Owens or the Gary Linekers or whatever. And you know, he holds the ball up probably better than any Albion striker I can remember.
Even Mark McCammon.
Even Mark McCammon, yes. He would have been my next choice. But yeah, no, huge fan of Glenn Murray. So chuffed that he's, you know, still banging them in at the moment.
And what do you put the Watford performance down to, now that we've seen that Watford are flying away with the and going to do a Leicester and win the league? Is that a large part of it, or was it that, do you think, we spoke just pre-season about how Bruno had said about we were playing a more pressing game, which we saw very much in effect against Manchester United. Was it that we were a bit tired going into that game, or a bit disorganised?
Yeah, all of those. That's what it looked like. Just underprepared.
Yes.
Watford played us off the park in all departments, really. And I think, yes, now it's a bit, with the benefit of hindsight, it's actually makes it feel less of a poor display to kind of look back now that you can see that Watford have had the start they've had. And I watched the second half against Spurs when Watford beat Spurs just before the international break, and they look really good. They look really good. I think it looks like Will Hughes at Watford is finally becoming the player that maybe everyone...
He's always been a thorn in our side.
Yeah, he has, but he's never quite kicked on. But it looks, I mean, he looked really, you know, I thought he was great against the Albion on the first day. And he looked really good in that game. Have you seen that guy up front for them? Not the guy Isaac Success.
Yeah, I mean,
he's like a wall.
Yes,
I mean, he's huge. But
the top league Akin Fenwa.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I know we're not here to talk about Watford, but you know that that maybe that result on the first day isn't as bad as maybe it felt.
I think it's interesting because Watford, it's an odd one in that they sold one of their best players in inverted commas, and there was a lot of eyebrows raised at the fee that he's fetched, and now he's tearing it out for both Everton and Brazil, Richarlison, and yet Watford seem to have benefited from...
Looks that way, doesn't it? Yeah, it really looks that way. So they look really good. I've actually predicted them for a win today in our predictions league. So I think they could
too, I think
definitely get a win against United. So you know, yeah, it's been a good start, hasn't it? A point a game keeps us up, right? Isn't that the target? So you know, I'm hopeful that we can continue with at least a point a game from Monday. You know, I'd like to think we can get something down there.
Yeah, we'll do a full preview of Southampton, definitely. One thing I'd like to keep up with you, Paul, is we discussed when you were on about a year ago how many grounds you've been to in your time. It was high 70s. Is that right?
Yes, it was. I think I've gone past 80 now after last season.
Nice.
I haven't actually counted up.
No, sure. But
call myself a football ground.
Which ones did
geek.
you add?
I added a few last year.
Did you?
So yeah. So Burnley,
Right.
Goodison.
That's weird that you'd never managed to get to Turf Moor before, in a way.
No, I guess it is. It had never really been high on the list, but I think when I was at my most prolific, which was kind of mid to late 90s, pre-children, pre-family, when we were kind of down amongst the dead men, so to speak, and did seem to spend my time driving around kind of northern hellholes kind of thing. And
this is a local station.
Sorry,
we are available
to any of our northern fans, but I never made it there. Rochdale and Halifax and Carlisle and Macclesfield and all of those places, but never made it to Burnley, and I wasn't missing much, if I'm honest. Burnley's an interesting place. So that was an interesting day out.
Different political sort of landscape to
different land. Yeah, definitely a different political landscape. I don't want to get into that because it could be dangerous ground. But yes, certainly the locals were kind of a bit more parochial maybe than we used to. Beer's very cheap though. 5 pints in the pub was about 13 quid. So if you're looking for cheap beer, then Burnley's the place. Goodison, I added last year.
Famous cantilevered stand.
Yeah, horrible. Just rubbish. It's even. I know it's an old ground, but you would have thought with all the Premier League millions that they've had over the last, that they could have. I know there's that phrase about polishing a certain thing, that you can't do it, but you can roll it in glitter. I think they could have rolled Goodison in glitter a little bit, just to make it look nice.
They paid all their glitter money for Richarlison.
Well, maybe they have. So that wasn't. But I'm glad I ticked it off, and I do enjoy going to Liverpool anyway. I'm trying to think where else I miss Man City, so that's still on my hit list, and I miss St James's Park. So that's still on my hit list.
Still never been to St James's?
Still never been to St James's. So there's a couple to kind of think about this season, but I think they're the only two in the division now that I've not. And
do you plan to add those this season?
No, I think Man City's next couple of weeks. Is it? I haven't. I can't make it there, and. Although I think tickets aren't selling out. That's the interesting thing about away games this year is it looks like they're going much further down the kind of sales hierarchy.
Which is good for me, as somebody who doesn't have a million loyalty points due to the way I've bought tickets in the past. I've been a season ticket holder for, on and off for 30 odd years, but in particular non-stop for 6 years, 5 years, 6 years, however long we've been at the Amex. It's been a struggle, but I do have a friend who's just moving this month to Liverpool, just ahead of our Everton away game. So.
You should go. I mean, don't be put off. I mean, it's hugely historical ground,
of course, and it won't be around forever. And I really regret having missed a lot of the grounds that have now gone. Even like the old White Hart Lane, I didn't get to, and that's now
right. Yeah, no, you should if you can. I would recommend it because it's still quite an earthy kind of traditional footballing experience. Even the pubs near the ground and all of that, it's not polished in any way.
Into the past,
kind of, So which is kind of nice in a way, but you just would have thought they might have been able to do a little bit more,
especially when you spend most of your time in ultra hipster, Brighton, which I love.
Exactly.
Of course I love, but
the area around Goodison Park definitely isn't ultra hipster. So.
No, right. Tom, in other news, we were talking Glenn Murray. So we actually talked about this disputed goal last week. Has this been confirmed since we last spoke? Okay, what's the panel said? Is it the dubious goals committee?
I think it was the dubious goals committee. Yeah, it was a goal in 2008 against Walsall. At the time, given as an own goal.
Right.
But I've seen the video of it. It's Murray's goal all day long. So. I think at the time the club registered it as an own goal, something like that. It's now been overturned. He's now officially on 97 goals.
Right, so he'll be on the ton by 10 o'clock Monday night then?
Yeah, correct.
No problem. In other news, it's that time of year again. The FIFA game comes out the same weekend every year and has done since pretty much the mid-90s. Our Albion player ratings are out. I haven't got all of them here, but I've got most of the first team. I mean, as somebody who's been playing computer football games since the early 80s and has been playing Pro Evo or FIFA for 20-something years, I still can't believe when I buy a new football game that I'm going to be able to play as Brighton and not be completely hamstrung. I used to play as Brighton online against all comers, and of course they all were choosing, Chelsea, Barcelona, Real Madrid. But I'd get a result, they would get furious, disconnect and all that sort of thing. But what's weird now is Glenn Murray up front is a 76. These are out of 99 effectively.
But hasn't his pace gone down? Did I read that? He's gone down to 34 or something like that?
35 by default, yeah.
That's pretty bad in FIFA terms, isn't it?
It's not.
I'm no expert, but...
It's not ideal. It means that his other ratings must be very high, though. So in the sense that it's the overall is kind of an average. So 76.
Do you think they're basing that on that game towards the end of last season where a through ball went through and Glenn was on it? Did you remember this? And he just stopped running because he just knew he was never going to get there. Maybe the FIFA team were there that day. Maybe they saw that.
He hit the super cancel, as it's known, which is the don't even bother wasting your stamina going after that. Yeah. But yeah, it's amazing to have players like we don't have many 80s. In fact, we've got no 80s, but we got a lot of high 70s. Izquierdo with 91 pace. Even the players who some folks might criticise for being quite ordinary or even championship level players. You got Dale Stevens on a 76. You got classy midfielders, Gross and Prepper on 78 and 77, and that kind of goes through the team. The only surprising one I can see is actually Yves Bissouma, who looks like one of the most exciting prospects we got at the club, is a silver carded 72.
Wow.
So I think he's got. There's plenty of when they do their weekly form sort of. There's live cards which kind of the stats change as the season goes on. I imagine if Bissouma gets involved, he's gonna head up into the upper bracket there. But yes, a couple of weeks away, I think. Always a day one purchase for me. Send me stuff, EA, if you want.
I remember when Charlie Oatway, it must have been 2003, something like that, he had a ponytail on the game. They obviously hadn't researched at all what Charlie Oatway looked like.
Oh, goodness.
He just had like a blonde ponytail.
Right. Well, it was only last year we discussed on this very show the horrors of the default Chris Hughton that looked like Trevor McDonald. It was not good, but they've since fixed that. He's got his goatee in the game, but we'll allow that. I've still got Sensible World of Soccer on my Xbox 360, which they re-released back in 2008. It was 2007. It's the 96-97 version of Sensible World of Soccer. So that squad is basically like one of our worst ever teams. Yeah. So I get to play with that lot. Although you still got Jeff Minton, Craig Maskell, so
Ian Baird.
Baird up front. Anyway, enough video game chat for this week. Let's talk actual football. It's time for the international roundup. Remiss of us last week, we didn't really mention our African players. That was a terrible oversight on our part because actually we have a trio of them currently, and they were all involved in Africa Cup of Nations games.
Yes, we had Leon Balogun playing for Nigeria. Bong back in the Cameroon squad for the first time in quite a long time, I think. And of course, I guess the slight forgotten man, Percy Tau.
Not forgotten by our South African fans.
Or, no, definitely not. He scored a very good goal for his Belgian team, whose name I can't pronounce. But they were playing... I'm not sure who against.
No, I don't.
They all took points.
Yes, absolutely. Back over in Europe, Beram Kayal was not involved in either friendly, I don't think, but apparently the second one, and I just overheard this on a commentary, so I can't swear to it, but I think the commentator said Kayal will not be involved due to his brother's wedding.
I did see pictures on his Instagram of him at a wedding.
Okay.
I didn't realise he was missing a international match.
So I was wondering if maybe that's why he didn't play in the previous one, because they knew that he wasn't going to be available for the other one for his brother's wedding. I hope he hasn't.
Maybe he'd been on the stag do and he just couldn't make it because he had a hangover.
Yeah. Hang on. Is he the one who would be teetotal or? I
don't know.
No.
Apologies if I've offended anyone.
Shane Duffy is one cap short of the all-time Albion record for international appearances whilst at the club.
Yeah, and he was on, I think he was an unused sub the other night, so he would have equalled had he played in that game.
Oh, okay.
So he's one behind Steve Penny and someone else.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, that says it all really, because Steve Penny, excellent player.
I think he's about 17 caps.
But yes, and he was forever, his career was blighted by terrible. I think he had 2 broken legs, something like that. And yeah, he really should have gone on to better things. I mean, he did play did play at a higher level, I think, than us.
Just before 85 was when I first started going regularly, so I guess he was still around then, wasn't he, for maybe a couple of seasons?
He went off to Burnley?
You're testing me here.
I'm testing myself.
You're testing me, yeah. That we'll have to refer to
Google.
The interweb to find that one, I think.
Yeah, but no, that's exciting because, again, I know everything we talk about with the Albion is always kind of steeped in our relationship to the past. But I remember singing We've Got a Maltese International at Gary Chivers, who apparently may have qualified to play for Malta by grandparents or something like that. Apparently he wasn't that keen on this chant. He thought it was a bit demeaning. But the fact that was where we were 20 odd years ago, and now we've got players who are multiple regular internationals for decent sides as well.
It's kind of the norm now that every international break we've got kind of quite a lot of players going off to the country.
Yes.
Whereas before it was a huge novelty, not even that long ago. I remember you get like one player going off to like an under-21s team. Like mind-blowing.
Dan Harding or Hinshelwood.
Exactly. Yeah. And but now it's very much the norm, really, isn't it?
Yeah. It's definitely a sign of where we come. Does anyone know if Shane Duffy was in any way involved in the blow-up between Keane?
Probably.
There was a whole sort of thing with Stephen Ward and a WhatsApp message, and Roy Keane being a dinosaur, and I've only heard bits and bobs, but it sounds pretty bad. It's not sort of camp that I particularly want to be involved in. Sounds like there's a lot of old school in the case of O'Neill and Keane. I'm a big fan of O'Neill, but I think maybe that sort of school of management is the sort of the Brian Clough way is now something that has to be, kind of consigned to the past.
Kind of a carrot rather than stick, or is it the other way around? Yeah,
arm around the shoulder rather than kick up the ass, whatever. Yeah.
Do you want a Steve Penny update?
Yes, please. Yeah.
So, Wikipedia tells us he was actually at Brighton for 8 seasons from 1983.
Wow.
Which really surprises me, and I think that links back to what you said about him being injured a lot, because I don't remember him playing that much. He left us in 91.
Blimey.
And he had a short stint at Hearts, and then after that an even shorter stint at Burnley, remembered, Gold Star, which didn't last very long, and a persistent knee injury forced him to retire in about 1992, I think.
Right,
so,
and he still wasn't that old even then, was he?
I wouldn't have thought so. No, we got him from Ireland. We had a bit of a pipeline from Ireland at that time, didn't we? We had a lot of good players.
Did we turn Roy Keane down?
I think that was one we did turn down.
He was too small.
But yeah, there you go. Fact news.
Good research. This is the advantage of having 3 of us in the studio. One of us can be Googling. Aaron Connolly, the remarkable Aaron Connolly, scored a goal for the international team that he plays for currently, which is the Republic of Ireland under-19s, potentially a international cap record breaker of the future, seemingly.
Definitely. We're big fans on the... he scored last night as well, which I'm sure we'll get onto a bit later. But it's a very good player. And Hayden Roberts, who made his debut for the under-23s last week.
Right.
Played for England under-17s, played 2 games for them as well.
Fantastic.
So, it's good.
This is so exciting. It'd be disingenuous for me to say, Hayden Roberts, I've been watching him come through the ranks. I don't know Hayden Roberts, but I'm excited that we've got players like Hayden Roberts coming through and representing. We've also got youngsters playing for other nations. Anders Dreyer and Hugo Cato came up against one another as Denmark's under-21s sealed a 2-0 victory over Finland's under-21s on Friday. Cato played, is it Cato, as in the Pink Panther? Played the full 90 minutes but ended up on the losing side. Dreyer came off the bench in the closing stages. Stefan Ljubicic, who I have heard of, was also used as a late sub for Iceland's under-21 as the striker's country claimed an emphatic 5-2 victory over Estonia. So it seems like the under-21s for Iceland doing rather better than the seniors, who I've seen tipped as the first team to plummet from the top tier of the UEFA Nations League all the way down to the bottom. And on that subject, I was going to ask you, Paul, the international break thing, every year it seems like a real bind. It feels like, friendlies, breaking everything up. We had this wonderful World Cup that I think most football fans thoroughly enjoyed. for England fans, it was a nice surprise because we got further than expected, although the team's probably about still of the standard you would think. We did have quite a nice draw, but it was a festival and a celebration. And then on the back of that, it just so happened that UEFA have brought in this new format. I don't know about you, but I feel like it's been a success this first round.
So you've asked the wrong person. I literally have taken no interest in it.
He was nodding away there.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I mean, anything that can be done to freshen up the international programme, I think, is a good thing. I didn't watch either of the games. I haven't seen the goals.
What I will say,
I was just completely. I don't know whether I've got other stuff going on, but just
you're still in the club over country.
Well, yeah, and I think a little bit maybe the cricket season still being on, and there's some exciting test matches that have been happening. So I'm sure you've been keeping tabs on all of that, Leon.
Some fella scored a load of runs on his last ever match.
Well done,
Alistair
and
Cook.
some other fella took a very important wicket to.
Oh, okay.
No, you remember that?
No.
Okay. And Sussex. Got to give a shout out to Sussex today, who are in the semi-finals of the big 2020 competition up at Warwickshire. So I'm sure there's a few folks up there. Hopefully I'll be on my sofa watching that later. But enough cricket.
Cricket corner. Tom, did you watch either of the England games? I don't know about you, but just having also picked up some bits and bobs from around the international scene over the last week, there is a real obvious, like from the second the games kick off, the difference between the Nations League games and the friendlies is so apparent.
I mean, friendlies have been a bit of a, I don't know, just dull fest for 20 odd years or whatever, so anything to kind of rejuvenate that and have it as something that is a bit competitive, countries actually care about. You've got this kind of promotion and relegation thing. I must admit I didn't watch either England game, but I do like the concept of the Nations League, particularly down in League D, where you've got a lot of the smaller countries
actually playing competitive matches.
Exactly, who used
for
to
the first time ever
getting thrashed, 8-9-0 as a norm, and now they're actually having some quite kind of decent matches and stuff.
Yeah. Luxembourg actually won a couple of games, I think, and stuff like that. So it must be amazing for them.
Scotland, are they down in?
So lucky I didn't bring Neil in today. Brought Paul instead. My name's Leon Cox. This is the Albion Mag Radio Show on 1BTN. We're on 101.4 FM, DAB Digital, and online, if you like. I'm here with Tom Stewart, our social media guru, and my friend Paul Druitt, Albion fan. And all-round lovely fella.
Thank you.
We are now going to talk about the Southampton match, back to Premier League action on Monday night at St Mary's. They had ever dabbled with having a sponsor for that ground. It's been St Mary's the whole time, hasn't it? They've never called it
I can't remember
the Draper Tools Memorial Bowl or whatever.
I don't believe they have. No.
Is Draper Tools still?
I'm assuming not. I'm assuming it's some kind of obscure Chinese betting website. It tends to be, doesn't it, for most Premier clubs these days? But no, maybe it is. Maybe it is still Draper Talks. I always think of, was it David Armstrong, the bald kind of, was he? He was a number 10 or yeah. Whenever the kind of Southampton Draper Tools thing is kind of way back when, he was a good player, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. Him and Glenn Cockerell in that goal. Yeah, we've recently entered, the Albion, have entered the world of slightly more obscure, exotic sponsors with our relationship with this Bitcoin company. I saw the thing up on the board behind somebody that was being interviewed after a game, I think it was, and I was like, what is that?
So I think they're our official cryptocurrency provider now, aren't they? Is it I can't remember, it begins with an E. I probably should know. I spent the whole of the last game looking at the signs, right? But do
you know anything about
eToro? Is it eToro?
It's something to do with a bull, which made me think it was an energy drink because they've always got taurine in, and like Carabao's got the thing. But no, it's
so I work in a technology world and
a finance world.
Yeah, but I kind of more with technology, and I have been hearing about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, blockchain for quite a while. I still can't get my head around it.
Okay, good.
So please don't ask me about it live on the radio.
Yeah. Sorry, the bosses aren't listening. Well, I just hope it's obviously...
We had a new sponsor as well, didn't we? Not only do we now have a cryptocurrency official cryptocurrency of Brighton Hove Albion, don't we have an official education partner as well? Announced
The university.
The University of Brighton, I think.
Yeah, we did cover this briefly.
Oh, did you?
Week,
Okay.
But, no, but I was only armed with the press
I wonder what
release.
other official suppliers we can have.
Well, in the old days, it
an
would have
infinite
been,
amount now, doesn't it?
in the old days, it would have been probably alcohol and cigarettes, but or Mars bars. But now it's good.
It's
good
anything.
stuff. Education.
Anyone who's prepared to give us some money.
But, that's probably the way Paul Barber sees it. But
I think it is.
I like to think that Tony Bloom wouldn't. I know he's a gambling man, but I like to think he wouldn't get involved in anything too dodgy.
It's interesting, yeah. I mean, obviously, our current sponsors are very upstanding, global brands.
Yes,
and I don't know where our relationship with them is in terms of contract lengths and things like that. So I'd like to think that Tony would kind of stick with someone like that rather than go for the quick buck with 888bet.com or something like that. So, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. But
mind you, I suppose gambling's one of the oldest professions as well.
And he likes to gamble, doesn't he?
The oldest
Tony?
profession.
So.
Yeah, he does. Anyway, Southampton. So Chris Hughton has confirmed that everyone is back in training. Everyone ahead of the Monday's game in Hampshire, including Florin Andone, who apparently did feature. Was it a whole half he played?
He played a whole half, yeah. And my spies at the game said that he looked pretty good and looked pretty quick. Held the ball up pretty well for it. He's not a huge guy, is he? I think is he only 5'10" or 5'11" or something like that? Yeah,
he's nudging 6 foot. I think.
So it was great, obviously great for him to get a half, and for the fans that were there last night to kind of finally see him. I think we're all really intrigued to see where he fits into the squad and the team, and how him and Lacadia kind of fit in. And if Andone is fit enough for Monday, does he take Lacadia's place on the bench, or is Lacadia,
it's more of a different option, isn't it?
I know. So it's going to be interesting. It's great that we have the depth now. I mean, I think that was something we probably talked about on the show last year. Was we had a great starting 11, but we didn't really have the depth that other teams who were slightly more established had. And I really remember being at Bournemouth last season and losing 2-1 in the league, having been 1-0 up. And the reason was because Bournemouth brought on, I think, Jordan Ibe and someone else of equal kind of standing, and we just didn't have that strength to kind of bring on. So I think obviously our recruitment in the summer was aimed at making there 3 or 4 good players for kind of every position, and with Andone and Lacadia and Murray, hopefully there's a bit more competition and a few more options. Absolutely.
And you mentioned a plan B that we saw in effect at Liverpool, but also that plan B kind of came into bared some fruit against Fulham, arguably, didn't it?
Yes, I guess it did. I mean, I think possibly those plans differ a bit away from home, and particularly against the top 6. But I think it is encouraging to see Chris maybe making those changes just a little bit earlier and almost rolling the dice a little bit. I think that was the case at Liverpool. It's we've held them for 75 minutes and it's 1-0. We may as well give it a go, right?
Absolutely,
and I think had Pascal Gross, kind of just put that 50 centimetres either side, we would have snatched the goal there. So, I think, yes, he changed it against Fulham, and obviously that had some effect. I wasn't particularly pleased when he took Knockaert off, because I thought Nocky was having a cracking game.
Sounded like it from where I was in.
And funny enough, I was sitting next to our mutual friend Neil at the game, and I said, when the subs were warming up, kind of 5-10 minutes, I said, I hope he's not going to take Nocky off. And Neil said to me, he won't take Nocky off. Nocky's playing brilliantly. 5 minutes later, he takes Nocky off. And I don't know if you saw Nocky's reaction.
Nocky.
But yeah, he was, and rightly so, I think, because for me, he was. I know he doesn't always have the final cross, or maybe he tries a bit too much. But I just love the fact that at the moment, the way he's playing, he gets the ball at his feet, and he has the intent to drive forward, to do something, to do something positive, to take people on. And up until that game against Fulham, where Solly March actually, I don't know what happened to Solly, but Solly March was doing that as well, particularly in the first half. And Solly March hasn't been doing that for me. So I for me, Knockhart's been the one that should be playing, and possibly it's March that should be kind of being subbed. But
just so happens that the player we've brought in, obviously for a lot of money and with a lot of hype, plays on the same side as Knockhart naturally, rather than on the same side as Solly.
I think Knockhart can kind of do either wing though, can't he? Ish.
I think he quite strongly favours playing on the right. Yeah, true. One player's name that always fills me with dread, and rightly so, based on our most recent game against Southampton, is Charlie Austin. He is an injury doubt, as is Shane Long, which was another player who used to scare me, but seemed to have largely stopped scoring now. They're both injury doubts. They haven't.
Was he ever prolific though? He always had a lot of pace, didn't he, Long? But I don't know if he's ever really.
Late goal specialist.
Maybe.
The pair could return to training over the weekend, so I guess we don't know. I also noticed that according to my fantasy league team, Pascal Gross was down as a 75% chance, and he definitely seemed to be something. There seemed to be something up in the last game, but he's not listed as a doubt on any of the preview press I've read. So I guess he's going to be involved, but. There is that question that now away from home, are we going to stick with Gross because he's just far less effective away from home on a percentage basis?
Yeah, and I think he was last season actually. I think he's slightly less effective away from home, albeit he's very good at home. But now we have Bissouma, who can kind of play in that same role and has looked really effective every time he's come on. So maybe it could be he starts away from home, and Gross, was one of our best players last season, drops down to the bench. It's quite a big call to make, I think.
It is, but if it's tactically the right thing, and again, you're talking about that strength in depth and having options, part of Chris's job is to keep everybody happy, and that could involve actually just rotating the team a bit. And I'm sure Gross is enough of a team player and a squad man to know that if his particular skill set is more aptly deployed at home, and Bissouma might cause trouble away, then I'm sure he'd go for that.
It's interesting. You just mentioned keeping players happy. Now that's a conversation that I've had a number of times this season already, and there seems to be a prevailing thought amongst some of the people I talk to about football that these players are going to throw a strop if they don't play every week, and we spent £20 million on Jahanbakhsh or whatever, so we've got to be playing them. I'd like to think they're professional enough to understand the nature of what it means to be part of a group, to be part of a team. And I thought it was really interesting, and I don't know if you touched upon it last week, haven't caught up with the show yet, but I think Matty Ryan was quoted in the press as talking about this. I'm not sure I can say it on the radio, but there's no...
Yes.
We've
covered
it. So,
no idiots.
No idiots. There you go.
Yeah.
No idiots rule. So, and I think if we have recruited with that being one of our primary, then hopefully the players will get it. And we don't have to think about playing people just to keep them happy. So.
I definitely get that impression. I think it is something we've talked about on the show before, about how most of our players are very easy to like. As I know some people would prefer a player who's a bit more of an old school.
Apart from when they're driving like idiots and getting their licences revoked, or not actually having licences in the first place.
That was hugely disappointing, actually. Yeah, we're talking about Bong, aren't we?
Yes, and also I think Noki was a bit naughty, wasn't he, at the end of last season as well? So, yes.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's actually... I'm hoping that... Houghton will manage to crack down on any sort of party boy or just above the law kind of behaviour, which is, I think it's very easy it's easy to make excuses, but also I think it is easy for young men with a lot of money to get a little bit over excited about their status in the world and kind of forget about actual social responsibility,
real life.
Yeah, totally. So Southampton. I don't fear them like I used to, and I certainly don't fear them this season. Obviously, we're right near each other in the table at the moment. They've got off to a shaky start. Probably it feels like they've got off to a shakier start than we did, but then they beat Crystal Palace, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen too much of them. I think signing Danny Ings was a cracking bit of business. If he's fit and able to, then I think that's a good signing for them. We saw from the cup game, didn't we, that Redmond looks like a handful, and Austin, if he is fit, will always score against us. I still remember that game against QPR a few years back where
2 goals.
He got 2 goals when we were 2-0 up, but I think that was mainly due to Lewis Dunk kind of losing his brain and getting sent off. But I don't think they're going to challenge anywhere too high up the league this year from what I've seen. And like I said at the top of the show, I think we should certainly be looking to come away with something from the game.
So predictions then. Well, Mark Lawrenson, former Albion player, although he tends to prefer to talk about Liverpool and Preston. He predicts 1-1, but as part of his predictions game, as it were, on the BBC, they also asked Marky Mark Wahlberg from movies and one-time pop career what he thought the score would be. He's gone for a 4-2 Southampton win. I'm not sure how much of a student of either side or the Premier League he is. He's probably been more in the news this week for his extraordinary daily routine that he posted, which involves waking up at 2:30 a.m, 15 minutes of half an hour of prayer at 2:45, and then strangely half an hour of golf at 7:30 a.m.
Lots of it's the cryo chamber thing that's kind of the scary bit.
Chamber recovery,
whatever that may be. Do you have a cryo chamber at Leon Towers?
I would do if it wasn't a rented property.
Right.
That's the problem. The landlord won't let me have one.
It's got a kind of nuclear generator that you need to kind of run it. That is the problem. Yeah, right. Yeah. But he looks good, doesn't he? I mean, if that's his routine, and he's
I think he's about our age, isn't he? Mid 40s.
If that's the routine you need to look like that. It looks a bit tiring, that routine. I've got to be very honest.
I'm not sure if he was actually how much of it's genuine. According to this, he goes to bed at 7:30, but I believe he has multiple kids, so that sounds like he's going to bed before his children, which seems unlikely.
I think he likes to watch the one show and then just go to bed.
He's definitely been on the one show.
Has he?
He wasn't as drunk as he was when he was on Graham Norton that time.
He's got time to drink, has he? In that kind of routine?
Well, no, he hasn't got.
Was he drunk on Graham Norton? I didn't know.
A couple of years ago.
I'll have to look that out.
Yeah, he hasn't got a slot for drinking. Have you got a sort of a daily regimen that's
well, I certainly have a slot for drinking.
Yes.
So drinking commences as soon as I get in from work, and kind of. Nothing along these lines, Liam, and entirely boring, and kind of focused on work and family, really. So I can't pretend that I hop in the cryo chamber at any point.
Don't you have one at your office?
No cryo chamber, no. And certainly don't schedule the dinner and family time. That kind of happens pretty organically once I've taken away their iPads and their phones and forced them to talk to me.
Smashed them like Kirsty.
Yes, exactly. Oh yeah, what a great response that was, smashing up their devices rather than just putting them in a drawer. So no, my routine's very, very dissimilar to Marky Mark Wahlberg.
Snack, is that the same? Do you have a snack?
I tend to, being in an office all day, there's always cakes and things like that, so I'm invariably just eating cakes most of the day. Okay. So they're the only real snacks I can.
Tom, have you got a regimen, a routine that you stick to every day?
Well, I've got a 12-week-old baby, so no.
He creates a routine.
He's very much in charge of my daily routine. Yeah.
Good stuff. So, Twitter time. The poll has probably concluded by now. So, who do Brighton Hove Albion fans on social media who listen to this show, and probably some others as well, think that who will be more fondly remembered, Glenn Murray or Bobby Zamora?
Well, it's overwhelmingly in favour of Bobby Zamora, 66% to 34%. Some comments in the on the Twitter for both, it wasn't really that kind of question, but 66% for Bobby Zamora and 34%.
Fondly remembered? Both.
some comments from Peter Ward
more.
as well.
No, I love you more. It's like one of those.
Well, very much so. Yeah. So clearly Zamora's the fans' favourite there.
Why do you think that is, Tom?
Well, I think my generation, he was.
How old are you, Tom?
I'm 31 years old. I know I look.
I think we've had a few listeners who misunderstood the age that I am, because we get a lot of you youngsters wouldn't know. I'm 46.
Wow.
Anyway.
Very young voice though.
Yeah,
very very young voice. Zamora was the first good player that I saw for Brighton.
Yeah.
And for that, he has a certain place in a lot of fans' hearts, I think. And I think even for older fans, you'd gone a long kind of time with very little quality in the team. And then this young guy comes along and bangs in all these goals. And he was the star man in the team, whereas Murray has been a very good player and a very successful player. I don't think he's really been the star man in a Brighton team.
Paul, shout out for Mark Gall, Mike Small, Kurt Nogan.
Kurt Nogan, yes. Great players, but obviously never in the same league really as the two guys we're talking about. And I can completely understand the poll. I think it's for all the reasons Tom said. Actually, we'd had a very barren time. We came back to Brighton. We started winning things, somehow put a squad together that started to achieve things, and Bobby was obviously a huge part of that. So it's I think the phrasing of the question, fondly remembered,
yes.
A lot of it is linked to that. I think even when Glenn came in and our first 6-figure signing for a long time, 300,000, and he started banging in goals straight away. And
yes.
But even when he was doing that, I still think there was an element of people who just didn't quite get him. I think he had a very languid style.
So classic, isn't it? The languid style, yeah.
And so
Lower league Berbatov.
Exactly, yeah. And I think people kind of thought that meant he was a bit lazy or whatever. But, he's kind of like, he's got 20 goals this season, it's... So I think, for that reason, and I also think, probably not helped by Gus Poyet, not agreeing to the extra $2,000 a week or whatever it was that he wanted, and prioritising CMS over Murray. I don't think anyone who ever spent 2 or 3 seasons at Palace is ever going to be remembered hugely fondly by Brighton fans. There's always going to be an element of folks who, that is a barrier to their their love or respect. That
was a little window into Poyet's ego, which we've now seen.
At numerous other clubs, right?
Yeah, precisely. We've only got 10 minutes left, amazingly. Let's talk about the Brighton Hove Albion women's football team. Bristol City 1-0. They beat us. What happened, Tom? You were there.
Well, I think Brighton were perhaps a little bit inexperienced. I think would be the best word to use.
Loads of new players coming, right?
Lots of new players.
Yeah.
You could just... I don't know whether Bristol City are an older team, but they looked like an older team. A lot more kind of mature, I guess. Brighton had a lot of chances at 0-0. Very good chances, which they really should take. And then they were, as I'm sure we've all seen many times in football, if you don't take your chances, the other team, one moment of quality, one long range kind of fairly speculative effort, which flew into the top corner, just did it, and Brighton couldn't really respond. But I was impressed with the back four, looked very good for Brighton.
Okay.
Particularly centre back called Victoria Williams. I think I've got her name right. Apologies if I haven't. But she's excellent. Very big, physical, ball playing centre back. Really good.
Fab.
So
Hope Howell was disappointed. She said, we need to take our chances and score when the opportunity arises. We have to do the basics better. The women are at home to London Bees tomorrow in the Continental Tires Cup. That's a 2 p.m. kickoff. I assume that at home means at Crawley again.
Yeah, Crawley, yeah.
You were saying in the break that the attendance was a little disappointing.
Yeah. I understand why they've got. I think the club's hands are slightly tied in terms of why they have to play in Crawley, but I think attendance-wise, it's never going to grow whilst they're playing in Crawley. Unfortunately, it's not. It's too far from Brighton. It's a bit annoying to get to. Crawley's not really a Albion supporting town,
No.
so. Yeah, I think it's difficult. I think that might need a bit of a rethink from the powers that be, in my opinion. Yeah.
Cool. Back to the men, but the under-23s. None of us were there last night, but Paul had a spy at the game. This was a sibling at the game. This was a win against West Ham United, coming from a goal down to win with, what's the pronunciation we're saying now? I thought it was Gyökeres, but you're going with...
Guy Corres. I think Guy Corres. I heard the commentary and
we're hoping they've asked.
So you'd like to think they kind of researched it, but I think he got the equaliser right, and then
Connolly,
everyone's favourite under 23.
It's very exciting.
Connolly kind of got the winner. So from what my spy at the game, aka my sister Helen, tells me, that we were pretty poor first half. As I've already mentioned, Andone kind of looked okay, but I don't think we performed too well in the first half, and then came good in the second half and got 2 goals in 3 minutes. I think West Ham probably a little bit unlucky, probably. They had someone playing for them, was it Silva, I think, who apparently looked very, very good. I don't know, I didn't do full research on him, but what a great start to the season.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting stuff. And so I'll follow Leon Rossini's Instagram, and he's obviously heavily involved. And
so I think he was there kind of shouting away.
Yes.
Houghton was there, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Great
exciting
to see.
Times. And I always try to check myself when I get overly excited about a young kid scoring bags and bags of goals, because we've seen...
Because you can remember David Jipp,
Jake Robinson.
We are showing our age there.
Yes, very much so. And yes, they don't always...
No.
It doesn't always translate into senior football.
No, that's right. Yeah, but I think it's a different time. I think we've got a different setup.
Yeah.
We are obviously built a framework that's really going to develop players right from a young age. So, I'd like to think that some of these guys will come through. And if they don't, I think they're going to be worth a lot of money anyway.
Yes.
So, I think that's the aim, isn't it? That if we get 1 or 2 breakthrough, that's fine. But if we're selling 4 or 5 of them a year, for a couple of million quid each, then, that's equally as good, right?
Okay, I'm very excited about this. It's time for the reggae bed. Yes, this is what I've waited my whole life for.
Sweet.
For the non-league roundup, courtesy of your friend Dean Kilford. Last week, Burgess Hill Town, Worthing, Whitehawk, Bognor Regis Town and AFC Uckfield all progressed in the FA Cup at the first time of asking. Contrasting fortunes in the replays as Lancing fell 3-0 to Phoenix Sports and Lewis prevailed 4-1 on penalties following a 1-1 draw with Faversham Town. Saltdean are currently 3rd in the SCFL and still one of only 3 unbeaten teams following a win and a draw this week. Games to watch today include Worthing versus Margate, Whitehawk versus Haringey Borough and Lewis versus Enfield Town. Peacehaven and Telscombe versus Shoreham in the FA Vars and Saltdean versus Littlehampton Town in the FA Vars. On Tuesday night, there's a huge derby in the Velocity Trophy, Bognor Regis Town versus Whitehawk. Also another big local derby in the RUR Cup, Shoreham versus Lancing. There will be a new way to watch non-league football this year. In fact, it's already started. The best goals of Sussex football is shown on YouTube from 8 p.m. every Monday night. Search YouTube for the Sussex Football Show with your host, Dean Kilford. There goes the can't even say it, Reggie bed.
So what is the Velocity Trophy? And what? It sounds really intense.
Yeah,
doesn't
I
it?
remember it from last season, but I don't know who Velocity are. But shout out to them. And
so it's great to see some of our clubs getting through in the FA Cup, because I know each round is quite a substantial amount of money, isn't it, that they kind of incrementally make.
Yeah,
so
thousands and thousands of pounds.
So that's great.
Yes, absolutely. So in closing, one thing we haven't done ourselves is predictions for Monday night. Are you going, Paul, or is it a tricky one?
No, I've decided to, having done all but 3 away games last year, I've kind of decided to take a little bit of a step back this season, just to replenish the bank account. So with it being on TV, it didn't seem like one that I wanted to check out. And I've been to St Mary's a number of times.
Yes.
So my prediction is a very dull 1-1. I think that's probably the score that a lot of people are going to go with. I'll be pleased if we get a point, and I'll be even happier if we manage to sneak 3.
Be beautiful. Tom, are you going to surprise us with your prediction?
I'm not. I'm going to go over 1-1 as well. I think Murray's going to edge closer to the 100 mark with let's go with a late equaliser.
It's 98.
Yeah.
Oh, late equaliser. Okay, well that'll feel good. I'm also going to go 1-1. There's nothing more I can say about it than that. So we're going to leave you with another track from our friends at Jalapeno Records. This is going to be Take Your Money by Flevens. This was the Albion Mag Radio Show with me, Leon, Paul. Cheers, Paul.
See you later.
See you next week as well, Tom.
Goodbye.
And here we go. See you next time.